There's a personality type that everyone trusts, but very few people want to become. If you're listening, it very well might be you. Welcome back to the Grateful Podcast. Today's guest is Leah Marone, psychotherapist, TEDx speaker, clinical instructor at Yale, and the author of The Serial Fixer. In this conversation, we'll unpack why the most caring and empathetic people often feel the most drained and don't understand why. We'll talk about what happens when support quietly turns into control, why stepping back feels wrong even when it's healthy, and how learning to support without solving can change your relationships completely. If people come to you with their problems, this episode will land differently. Leah Marone, welcome to the Grateful Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm very excited, as this is something that the people in my close circle, I can imagine the people in my larger audience circle, but the people in my close circle, my personal circle, need to hear. I know a lot of people that struggle with this, and I think it's a very underrated problem.
I would agree. I think it's, very confusing because it tends to happen to people that have high emotional intelligence, right? That are able to walk into a room, whether they know everyone or don't know anyone, and are able to quickly decode. And I think you operate then being 5 or 6 steps ahead, which is a wonderful skill, but if not used properly, it can really lead to overextension and exhaustion.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious, from my understanding of your story, this kind of started because you observed these traits in yourself, right? So what did your life look like before you identified your serial fixing habits?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. It's kind of that self-awareness clicked in where I was really placing everyone else's needs consistently above my own, which again, my inner pleaser was happy about. The inner rescuer in me is like, no, 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 this is how you live a selfless life. This is how you kind of tamper down the ego. This is how you live and connect and collaborate and be kind. And those are all wonderful things. But as you can see, it's also a recipe then if you're not inserting yourself into the equation and understanding, even more importantly, why you're not, then it can lead to missing out. It can lead to what a lot of
Mm.
people that I work with say, I crave to be present. I crave to know myself. I crave to want to be okay being alone with myself. But it's that inner work and inserting yourself into the equation and really understanding what your needs are and how they can work in tandem with serving other people.
So what's going through the mind of a serial fixer when you talk about they crave being present? So what is replacing that presence? What are they putting their focus and energy toward?
Yeah, I think this is where, I speak a lot in parts. When as a clinician, it's about, really identifying a certain part of us and what it's motivated by, what it's trying to protect us from. And as humans, we're incredibly complex and we have a lot of different parts and motivators and filters, if you will, happening all at once, which really
Hmm.
generate these internal conflicts. And so if you think about serial fixing, and we just kind of take someone maybe in a leadership role or even a parental role, like you are assessing quickly what the needs, what the struggles, what the emotions that are hard that the person that you're with might be experiencing, which is, again, wonderful. It's a superpower. But it's also kind of in that, monologue, kind of in that decoding, you might also have a critical part of you saying, if you don't step in, if you don't try to fix this, if you don't nip this and this person, doesn't feel better, then are you relevant? Are you productive? Are you actually being a good parent? Are you actually leading your team well enough? And it kind of takes that ego blow, right? And we start to then make it about us. And we start to then assess and get a little nervous with if we don't do this, if they don't get relief and we don't kind of initiate that or help guide that, then what does that say about us?
Hmm. So I'm curious, when you were younger and before you kind of realized what you were doing, were you, do most serial fixers, do they think that they're genuinely being of service to the other person? Deep down, if they reflect, if they are reflecting, right? Are they like, this habit, this way of acting is helping other people? This is being selfless in a selfless good way? Or is there some recognition, some consciousness of the fact that it is to boost their ego, or is there a balance? What's the combination of this?
Well, I think you just started to say it. It's kind of removing that all or nothing thinking, because I think it's a combination. And so if I again use myself as an example, like when I think it was my 7th birthday party, I can remember almost missing it because I was there, I was present, but I was so concerned whether or not my friends were having fun. I was
Mm,
so fixated on, does this person think this party's stupid? Are they having fun? Are they getting along? Oh, should I have not invited her because of this? Now that, like, I was so concerned and almost emotionally fixing and trying to be 5 steps ahead and really generating and being responsible or holding myself responsible for everyone's happiness. And it was my birthday and I missed it. And I, forgot that, like, these people are here for me. And it's celebrating me, and I wouldn't give myself permission to really embrace that. And so it was almost, if you think about kind of getting in that mode, I think it does come from a caring place, but it's also serves on the same, in the same breath, sometimes as a distraction from really tuning into what's going on with us. Because if we can use other people's potential discomfort and problems and struggles as a structure for us, we do feel useful. We do feel that we're doing something, and we are, but it's also pulling us away from sometimes the internal work and the recognition that we need to be doing as well.
huh. So it's not just like I've heard you talk about how when you are acting in this way, you're kind of taking power away from the individual that you're interacting with. But it's not only that, it's also what I'm hearing from you, that you're being unfair to yourself and you're not giving yourself what you deserve.
And that's a great way to say it. And of course, it depends on the situation. It depends on the scenario, the relationship. But I have found that sometimes, compassion is disguised as control. Sometimes when we are
Hmm,
very close with someone,
interesting.
we really want them to be okay because we care about them. We love them. That's a genuine empathetic response.
Hmm.
But even as a parent, sometimes it's like, oh, I really wish my daughter would figure this out and she would feel better so then I can feel better. Right. And sometimes it's
Yeah,
my own
yeah.
discomfort too that I'm like really wanting to soothe by jumping in and telling her this script of what she should do and when she should do it. So she hopefully gets relief because then I can get relief.
Huh. Have you heard of Nick Pollard? Do you know who that is?
No, I don't. Educate me.
He goes online by the name The People Displeaser.
Mm,
And he was like about a year ago, he was my first big guest I had on the show. I was so excited. But he talks so much about how he talks about people pleasing, which I think is probably, you would agree, is pretty similar to what you talk about. A few, like maybe a little further away on the coin, but like in the same ballpark of things, right? And he talks about how it's so selfish because you're only trying to please these people for your gain and the way it makes you feel. And that's often what we're doing when we're trying to like make others feel better. It's for ourselves. I've seen parents who want to help their kid get through something so much, but the kid's not necessarily motivated to get through it because they know it's only to please their parent. And that makes them want to do the thing less. So sometimes by trying to help someone else, they don't want it. They want the thing that you're trying to help them get less. That's a weird paradox as well.
it really is. And that, when we say people pleasing too, it's such a common thing. And you're absolutely right. It's this really imbalanced kind of input output of, we think of the word validation, right? And that's really when we're people pleasing and caught in that. We're looking for that constant pacifier, that constant external validation of like, I'm doing okay, right? Like, I'm worthy, right? Like, you like me, right? And pretty fleeting. And so we look for our next fix, if you will. And so it really, as humans, external validation is wonderful, especially when it's authentic and we're not fishing for it. It's kind of a nice thing. Like, ooh, I already got my whole ice cream sundae that I've built. I'm doing well with internal validation, but you just put some sprinkles on top and that made it really nice. I didn't need the sprinkles, but that was an extra benefit. So thanks for that. And so I think it's like we're not trained necessarily. All of us don't have the luxury of being trained in childhood on how to really get pretty good at internal validation. A lot of times it's
Mhm.
set up with like, how can we be signed off by everyone else to, then confirm that we're okay, we're worthy, we're smart, we're good at this, we're good enough. And so a lot of us are lacking, especially as we move into adulthood, with just those repetitions of talking to ourselves and internally validating and not seeking and really on the hunt for external validation to take that place.
Hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point. On the devil's advocate side, I would imagine that you get this a lot, but people would say, "Well, Leah, isn't it selfish to not try to help someone when they're down? Isn't it selfish if I'm feeling if nothing's happening to me right now, but something's happening to them, aren't I obliged to go help them and try to make their life better?"
Yeah, you are. But the way you do that is not to take ownership. The way you do that is to support rather than solve. And that's where serial fixing, the first inclination, the first filter, the first way we turn is to grab ownership and to put it through our filters, our timeline, and give the direct advice, give the step by steps, make it about us, kind of prematurely relate, rather than validating first, saying, I hear you, I see you, what's going on, tell me more. And I think that's where, as humans in general, a lot of us claim to be good listeners, but I think that's where we fumble, because someone will say one or two things and our brains are very good at pulling from our data and making associations, but we pounce on that too quick. So you're absolutely right. Empathy and compassion, those are like gifts, superpowers. We need more of that. And this is not a like, let's just be individuals and like, oh, that's not, good luck with that. It's creating the space and exercising the patience that's involved with helping someone and supporting someone without fixing right away. It's really getting them to get those processing skills and come up with their options. And we lack that patience, I think, as humans.
So let's say that you were someone that was going through something difficult. Let's say a loved one died, for example, right? And I'm your friend and I see you. Instead of trying to provide a solution, the best thing to do would it be for me to say something like, I'm deeply sorry. This week sucks. Like, and lean into that sadness and feel that emotion with them and kind of hold space in that way. Would that be what you would recommend?
Yeah, I think it's first just even checking in to kind of get a baseline of, maybe even saying like, Leah, I can only imagine how you're feeling. And I'm assuming it's not very good. Like, tell me more. Tell me. And I may take
Yeah.
that wherever. I might say, I'm just a little numb this week. I'm kind of haven't thought about it, or I've been crying every day, or I can't believe, so
Yeah.
then you get a little bit of a baseline. And that's when you validate. That's when you say, oh, no, it sounds like it's been so hard, or it sounds like you're actually kind of taking care of yourself and coping quite well this week. And I think, you mentioned like, especially with grief and death and dying, so many of us, which rightfully so, are so intimidated with that because we feel like we have to say the exact right thing or have like this
Hmm.
wonderful statement that's going to make the person feel better. And so people then tend to shy away from those grieving, because it's like, well, I don't know what to
Yeah,
say. Or I
it's
said, I
true.
gave them a scripture, I said this, or I gave that. And they were kind of like, okay. And so I really wasn't very productive. And it's like, no, people just need sometimes you to hold space and to just create that space for them to share. And I love the phrase, tell me more. I use it all the time as a clinician
Yeah.
because it's one of those things that prevents me from making an assumption. It prevents me from
Hmm.
going into problem solving too quickly. And it gives that person an opportunity to go a tier down vulnerability wise, to explore more. And it's amazing how many times when you say that, people start to put their own puzzle together right in front of you.
That is incredibly insightful. When I hear you say, tell me more, I instantly question myself and why I went to the way I went to with the I'm sorry and trying to lean into something that I'm not even sure they're feeling. If we lead with a question, it makes the other person feel so much more understood. And then we're not at risk of saying the wrong thing anymore because it also gives them the opportunity to say, I'm really not comfortable talking about it right now. And then you can say, well, let me know if what I can do for you or what else or when you are ready, right? Biggest hindrance toward me making progress to my goals is my inability to monotask. When I'm doing something and I'm not making progress on it, I'll instantly switch to another thing. And then I don't make progress on that and I switch to another, perpetuating this cycle. And on top of this, I've had some bad brain fog due to some concussions I've had in the past. But in the past week, this has all changed because this amazing company, Magic Mind, sent me 15 of these mental performance shots they have. And they've made such a big difference. I've had one each of the past 7 days. And it's really made me be able to finish tasks before I move on to the next. I have concentration that lasts longer because of the caffeine that doesn't just hit you all at once, but it actually hits you continuously over a 4 hour time period. It's made such a difference in my productivity. And I'd love for you guys to get to try it out. So if you use Wagoner 20, the code Wagoner 20 at checkout, it'll be in the description as well. You can get 20% off these shots and 48% off a bundle of 30 of them. By asking the question, and then you're able to just say, oh, if you need to talk about it later, I'm here for you as well. And it allows you to it's risk free, right? At that point, there's no risk in trying to help somebody. And the other really insightful thing you said was that people leave those grieving alone because they're scared of offending them. And that's the other hard thing because I think people can feel intention. I know one of the kindest people I've ever met in my entire life. He's an older man. I met him at the gym, at the climbing gym, and he's been there for years and years. And he had some loss in his family, and it was really devastating. But I I was scared to say anything to him, but I did, and I definitely didn't say the right thing, but I said something, and the energy's felt. The energy's felt, and I think that's the other thing to keep in mind.
I do too, because it's again just moving away from that all or nothing thinking. And I think just again using our superpowers of empathy and maybe being able to read a room or a person and taking that initiative to connect and create space. But I think just the way we go about it, it removes pressure from us. It removes kind of that, oh my gosh, I have the right thing to say, or this person has to do this, or am I even worthwhile as this in this role? But it's still encouraging. Like what we need even now more than ever is just that connection with each other.
Mm, yeah. On another note, something I've been thinking about a lot with this topic is you talk a lot about serial fixing in regards to other people, in regards to your outside world, right? You fix the outside world. Something I've noticed in my life is I would more call myself an internal serial fixer, where sometimes I'm not going to allow myself to feel an emotion or lean into it because I'm going to get that solution instantly. I'd say at this point, I'm really good at leaning in and listening to other people and how they're feeling. But with me, I I constantly just need to find the solution instantly. And then you go down this rabbit hole of stuff and you just end up right back where you started, right? Is that something you tend to see a lot as well?
I do. And again, it kind of paints that picture of we have different expectations, maybe looser ones, or give people the benefit of the doubt, externally. But with us, we have a whole new set of standards that are like sometimes very unrealistic. And I think a lot of that, I'm with you here. Like I have a fierce inner critic, right? So my critic is with me most days and she's very loud. And I think I was taught, and particularly as an athlete, like, Leah, distract yourself, shove that part of you down. And I was
Mhm.
actually conditioned to kind of hate that part of myself. And in reality, just as a clinician and as I've learned different modalities and worked with patients, I've learned that that wasn't the right philosophy because as we know, anxious driven thoughts and our critical self and negative self-talk, like we can maybe put a band-aid on it for a minute, but it has a lot of real estate and doesn't want to lose it, and it gets creative. And so it will
Mm,
middle of the night. It will sabotage, when we are have a day where we're like, oh, I can't wait to relax. So it pulls us away from being present. And so I think for me, and something I really love to talk to people about, especially with fierce inner critics and high expectations, is learning to work with that part of you, learning to understand what it's really trying to protect you from. And your job is to soothe it, because that is kind of a protective part of you that is working really hard. And if we are not in alignment or have any awareness about where that part of us comes from and why they're working so hard, then we're kind of constantly looking for new band-aids and pacifiers.
Hmm. Talk to me about what soothing means. I hear a lot of different analogies. I've heard people, instead of saying soothing, they say give it a hug and then it'll dissipate. But it's not that simple.
It's not. And just like anything else, like if you're, when you get in shape, trying to get in shape and you haven't exercised for a while, it's going to take reps. It's going to
Hmm.
take several reps for your mind and body to trust you and the soreness to not be as strong after workouts. And this is the same type of thing. And so these protective parts of us, or these, for example, the self doubt, or you're about to do something and you get that critical voice being like, are you ready for this? Like, are you sure you're worthy of this? Like, is this person going to think this about you? And da da da, all that stuff that's very like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm normally very confident. Like,
Yeah.
that is when we kind of check in with ourselves and think, okay, what is this part of me trying to protect me from? And it's generally incredibly overdramatic. And, all the bells and whistles are happening. And this part of you is giving you 10 bodyguards when you need one. And so it's really checking in and understanding. And when I say soothing, I mean, for example, when I've had that happen before I've gone on stage, before I've done something, even in sports, I wish I would have had this framework, because it's not about, let me distract, let me just not think about it, let me try to give myself a pep talk and cancel it out. It's really having that conversation with myself of being like, oh, critic, you're back. I thought you may show up. We've done this before. We actually signed up to do this. This isn't a life or death situation. We generally feel nervous. We have the adrenaline and cortisol pumping the first minute or so, and then we tend to even out. So I need you. I want you to stick around. You keep me very motivated. But if you could just step back a little bit and let the other parts of me that are confident, that, are present, that are engaging, have a little real estate, I think we can all work together. And that sounds like, wow, Leah, you're just prescribing that we all speak to ourselves. Absolutely. Because we do have these
Yes.
different parts and almost personalities. And it's not that we're all walking around with multiple personality, but I think it's so important to have those check-ins, and they take time, they take practice. And those parts of us are finicky. They don't start to really trust until we have some reps under our belt, just like muscles, right? Just like when we're working out.
That's that's amazing. And one of the biggest things I took away from that, all of that, is you started off with a question again. Even though it's you're not asking another person. You started off yourself with a question, right? And it's getting curious again. Instead of instantly trying to prescribe a solution, it's trying to get curious with yourself, because I think it's a lot. It's easy to lie to yourself, but if you're lying to yourself most of the time. And if you ask a question, it'll at least make you pause, and then you have time to think about, all right, how am I going to do this in a less brash way? Because I know that if it's an instant, this is here, I'm going to push it out of the way, it's not the decision I wish I would have made, or I would have made if I asked myself why and then
Mhm.
acted from there.
That's right. That's right. And, sometimes we don't have the luxury, depending on what we're doing, or we have to react, or there's a timeline that we can't control, and we have to kind of be on and just go with the flow and like kind of silence in that second some of those critical voices. But it's always important to circle back. It
Hmm.
really is, because that gives you great data. So you have the luxury of like something's budding, it feels uncomfortable, and you're able to have that kind of talk with yourself. Awesome. If you're not, and you're thrown into something that's unpredictable, that's like, and you're just like, oh my God, we have these emotional hangovers sometimes, and we have these moments where it is so important to just do a quick check in after the fact and be like, what was happening? God, I felt like my heart was going to come out of my chest. Like, what was going on? And like, what can I use as data, and the fact that I'm still alive now and I survived, like, to tell that part of myself maybe next time. Like, that's critical stuff. And we bypass those important data points.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, one thing I've been thinking about as you were saying that is we've been focusing a lot on what the serial fixer does, when there's things to fix. But what happens when there's not? What happens when it's that amazing day? It's sunny out, it's beautiful, everything's going your way. What's the serial fixer do then?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a wonderful question. I think, if you really have kind of started to master the kind of relationship with yourself and all your parts, I think on those days when most things feel like they're going your way, and I think you'll have more days like that, honestly, because your filters will have expanded. But I think it's really important to recognize when you're able to give yourself permission to enjoy it, because many of us were out of shape with that. If we have downtime, if we have moments to ourselves, if we're doing something fun or we can let loose or we do this, a lot of times it feels weird. Our critic may
Hmm.
pop up and be like, is this productive? Like, should you really be doing this? No, you need to fill this gap, X, Y. And so I think it's like when you're able to give yourself permission to fully be present in anything that's coming your way, you're doing it. You found it. You found it.
Yeah, I was gonna say my prediction for what you were gonna say was that the serial fixer would always try to find something to fix. Even if everything seemed right, they would be focusing on whatever they needed to fix. And the way I was gonna flip that, and I still will, is I going into this conversation, I thought about it, and I think it's even more confirmed now that my solution, at least personally, to this was, and when I talk to people, is gratitude, because it's flipping from that I need to find something to fix, which is searching. It's searching for a negative in your life, right? Because it's trying to find something that's wrong. Whereas if we're looking for the things that we're grateful for and we're searching for the good, that's what our attention will go to. And so serial fixers seem to have this obsession with focusing and searching for the negative.
Yeah. And when you're caught in that wave, whether you're looking to fix things and being highly critical of yourself, or just looking for some sort of structure and ways you can be worthy and connect externally by fixing, you're right. There's some imbalances happening. That's a good check that, that's kind of your source of connection. And it's probably not working very well. And so
Mm.
in the moments when you're like, everything seems to be okay, I have a lot of patients that are like, everything's okay today. And now I'm freaking out because I'm wondering when the shoe's going to drop, the other shoe's going to drop and it's going to be misery. And I'm like, okay, that's a very normal thought, especially for someone who has some anxious thoughts that take up a lot of real estate. But your
Hmm.
homework is to be grateful. Your homework
Yeah.
is to give yourself permission to be as present as you can when things might feel calm or things might feel stable. Because on the other side of it, you beat the crap out of yourself when things are not. You are give yourself permission to be
Right.
in the frenzy and add more layers to the frenzy. So you got to pay yourself back.
Yeah, it's unfair, right? We're very present in the negative experience. We couldn't be more present. And then when it starts to be positive, when things start to go well, it's the opposite. We're not there really. Where did that develop, you think? In most people that you work with, where does that inability to be present, or maybe it's not an inability, but an a lack of awareness of how to be present in the positive, where does that start?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, I've really seen it, unfortunately, be harder to come by with just kind of our obsession with being productive. And what I mean by that is almost filling every crack and crevice in our day with something that the brain categorizes as productive. And a lot of that is being on our devices. A lot of that is, when we have just the natural pauses and transitions of our day of walking to another room, being at a stoplight, taking a shower. We fill these moments where we could be like, oh, let me look around for a second. Let me take a deep breath. Let me just like acknowledge how I felt during that last interaction.
Yeah.
Where our brain is like conditioned now with that urgency of how can I get ahead? How can I check this email? How can I check this off? How can I do this? I better check the news updates. I better do this. How social, because if I don't, then I'm going to be behind and I'm going to thank myself later when I get to relax. But then we don't know how to relax. Even with
Hmm.
multitasking, we're multitasking with our self care and relaxation. We're on our devices, we're watching a show, we're talking to someone, we're eating dinner. And so
Yeah.
I think we're daily not getting the repetitions in of practicing. It's a practice. So when you go for a walk, occasionally don't listen to anything or
Hmm.
don't be on the phone and
Yeah.
just look around your street. You'll notice something different. And it's
Yeah.
going to probably pique anxiety initially because you're not used to it. But with repetitions and practice, your brain and your protective parts will start to calm down.
Yeah. My favorite Buddhist quote is if you're thinking about work, or if you're thinking about the beach while at work, you'll be thinking about work while at the beach.
Ooh, I love that. That's so true.
Yeah, it's Thich Nhat Hanh, incredible. He's been one of my favorite authors for a long time. But if you can't learn how to be present in the positive, or if you're thinking about the positive while in the negative, or if you're thinking about something else where you want to be to escape, you'll not be present in that ideal future, right? You have to learn how to be present continuously. And I mean, what people talk about, I think that's a hard, nearly impossible task, right? That's an enlightened human being, but we can work toward just being more present in the in between stages. I think that's a really realistic and great goal to have, to just try to be more observant, even in these small periods of quiet time during the day.
Yeah, because we're given dozens of them if you really think about it. And even if we capitalize and start to practice on a few of them, and really notice when we are trying to clear or just clutter things up or be productive and just get everything done, like just noticing that and starting there. I mean, that to me is self care. That to me is enhancing self awareness. That to me is consistently trying to, better the relationship with yourself and your surroundings rather than kind of self care being like this all or nothing vibe. Hmm.
Right. Yeah. And that's why people burn out. I know that you work with a lot of burnt out individuals, and that's a lot of the people that I talk to as well are people that are just so burnt out. And burnout is, eh, I don't know if I just wasn't around it before. I mean, I was pretty young a few years ago, but it seems to me from the people that I talk to be uh, a trait that is on the rise because we
Hmm.
aren't present anymore. And it's a sad, burnout's a sad thing because I've seen people that have been burnt out with things that they love to do. And it's just an overwhelm. It's sad.
It is. And that's why too, I think just anxiety as a whole is just something that is more talked about and more experienced. Because if you think about anxiety, it's anything but present. It's preparing and over preparing for the future, right? The
Yeah.
what if, and it's ruminating and rehashing and trying to maybe control the past. And
Mhm.
so it's anything but the here and now. And so people are stuck in this anxious thought spiral of, anything but now, and lacking that self trust. And I do see one of the main ingredients in burnout. It's not necessarily because a lot of people that I speak with, they have their workout routines down.
Yeah.
They're eating great. They know sleep's a big thing. They got the basics pretty much down. But where they're misstepping is taking premature ownership in relationships. They are serial fixing. They're
Interesting.
jumping into conversations, trying to, again, just grab ownership to help the person, but also like, let's get it done. Let's move on. This lets me know I'm a good leader. This lets me know. And we're missing that. Like, well, what do you think your options are at this stage? Well, I'm
Mm.
hearing this and hearing you have a really rough week. Like, tell me more, or tell me what you know about yourself and how I can support you. Leaders are misstepping there. They're jumping in, well, when I was in your position I did this, or well, would a day off be great, or how can let me talk to this person for you. They're fixing. It's exhausting, and then the people they're
Yeah.
leading don't get repetitions and practice and what they need to be independent and motivated and really stay focused on productive collaboration in the company or team.
Do you think that it's more serial fixing as a trait is more common among people higher in the corporate ladder, or people that are more successful in a financial way?
You know, not really. I don't think it's
Okay.
zero to one thing. I think it does go hand in hand with a little bit of perfectionistic tendencies at times, because you kind of have that
Yeah.
fierce critic that kind of makes it about you. And if you don't deliver, fix, solve, then you're not effective. Then it kind of you got some ego imbalances going on. But I see it with people that, are not even in corporate world at all. I see it in
Right.
the nonprofit sector. I see it with stay-at-home parents. I see it in teenagers. I see it. So it's
Yeah.
really something that I think is across the board, and really kind of, I think, more so attacks, and attacks is a strong word, but people that again kind of have fierce inner critics, but also the ability to read other people and have high levels of empathy.
So that's the thing you said at the end is what I'm kind of trying to focus in on, because those are traits that are very helpful in being more successful in life. And when you look at evolutionary theory and natural selection and things, traits that help you in a way are the ones that end up being disseminated, right? And so a trait like this, a trait like serial fixing, can help you in a lot of ways. It can make your life better in so many ways, while at the same time making it worse. And I think that's probably the reason that it's not treated a lot, because it helps people advance in the ways they want to advance. It helps bring people closer to their goals. Would you agree with that?
I would. And, you kind of even think about that in relationships that aren't professionally, based, like even parenting and things like that. It's like it may work until it just doesn't. And like, once you have a teenager, once you have kind of a human being that has hit certain developmental stages, that is like, wait, what? I don't want to hear your solution, or I don't want you to control this, or
Yeah.
what? Like that happened to you 20 years ago. So it's like it might be wonderful to kind of have that assembly line and fixing and stepping and doing everything for your children when they're young and calling the teacher and prematurely, but it backfires when you have kids that are at that developmental stage but don't have the practice with taking initiative of calling or talking to their teacher, or taking those uncomfortable steps of kind of getting those repetitions and gaining that self-trust. And that's when we see some of those things backfire in the corporate world, in parenting, and just even in relationships. These micro codependencies start to happen and they backfire.
Yeah. Uh, do you have kids? How has it been having to apply the things that you teach in the parenting sense? Because listening to you talk, I think that a lot of it is most applicable to parents. I'm having scenarios run through my head right now, and I'm wondering how it is being a teacher of this stuff and then having to actually apply some of that stuff, or restrain from wanting to call the teacher.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And of course, I'm human, so I've had to work at it too. And like,
Yeah.
harness in on like support, don't solve, Leah, support, don't solve. And I have two teenagers. And so, yes, I mean, if they were in this room right now and you ask them, what does your mother say a lot? They'd probably be like, oh my God, she says, what are your options all the time? Because I do. And as much as, in certain circumstances, I know exactly what they should do. But I can't do it for them. I can make some
Hmm.
suggestions. I could say, what do you think? What are your options? What do you know about yourself? What do you feel? Because that's giving them the repetitions of processing, of
Yeah.
problem solving, of activating, of initiating. And they have me there, and of course, I don't nail this every time, but they have me there as a sounding board. And of course, I'm going to step in when I'm like, ooh, that doesn't sound right. Or that I'm not okay with that. Like, that doesn't sound, but it's so good
Mhm.
for them to not build this reliance of like, oh, mom will do the dirty work, or oh, mom will figure that out, or I
Yeah.
can just bait mom with one or two sentences and mom's going to just do it. And if I'm truly vulnerable, the ones where I've had to catch myself is when it wasn't necessarily the verbal things that would come out of my children's mouth. It was more their demeanor or the size or and of course, My fixing tendencies would come into play and be ignited and be like, what's going on? Did they do something? Are they feeling
Mm,
low? Should I ask this? Should I do that? Without knowing any of that. And sometimes I make it
right.
about me.
Yeah.
Am I asking them enough? Are they happy? Am I involved? Am I too involved? And I'm like, oh my God. It's amazing how that serial fixing with one sigh can kick you into gear.
Huh. All it takes is one small trigger.
Yeah. And you got to be
Wow.
aware of it. You got to be aware of it. Mm-hmm.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, you just saying that thing, it takes me back to a time like just earlier tonight where my friend was applying for internships and I was like, I don't think he's doing that in the best way. So I'm like, can I help you? And I go through, I'm like, this is his thing to figure out. I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm like, I said, like, don't listen to me. Sorry. I don't need to help you with that. But it's a funny tendency. Yeah. Huh. I think just a conversation like this for my listeners as well, but for me to bring awareness to the things that we're doing that we don't even think about. And so much of this is habit. It's unconscious habit. Most of our behavior is unconscious. And to think about things in this way is really, really important if we want to make change in our lives.
Yeah, and it's not about diluting and, decreasing the amount of empathy and compassion that we have. It's actually, I think, enhancing it when we can execute that patience and meet people where they're at and allow them to kind of, keep that ownership and have those problem solving skills and sometimes feel things that is excruciating for us to witness them feeling. That's
Mm,
hard.
yeah. Yeah, especially for a parent. I mean, thinking about my parents, I can remember uh especially when I was younger, where my dad would like encourage me to make a decision, and I could tell he didn't want me to know that he wanted this to happen, but I knew what he wanted, and I didn't necessarily make that decision right away, but I ended up coming to it later. And I'm like, oh, he knew all along, but I had to make the decision.
That's good
Uh,
parent. Way to go,
that's
Dad.
it's great. My parents are incredible, and that's great parenting because when you look at the kids that are successful and are emotionally mature and are uh, doing things out of the box, it's normally kids that have had to make decisions for themselves. They've been guided. They have to make decisions for themselves. I think thinking about a lot of relationships and comparing them to parenting is a great way to develop better relationships. And think about your friendship. If I thought about my friendship earlier as a parenting thing, I would have said, okay, he needs to make that decision by himself.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like, even you stumble, you're gonna fall. Like even your parents, I know, saw you kind of like, oh, I should have done this or feel uncomfortable things. But the important thing was you were then able to figure out how to recover.
Yeah.
And what that does is build self-trust. And so you're going to feel a slew of uncomfortable things because such is life, but you've also have data to refer to that you're like, I've felt something similar, or okay, like when I was in this position, this helped. Like that's you problem solving. That's you learning to recover and trust yourself.
So this has been so incredible. But I want to leave the audience with some action steps. So if you have like if someone's listening to this and they're like, "Oh, you got me. I'm a serial fixer. I kind of knew before this, or maybe I didn't, but that's me." What should they start to do just today to start to work toward a better way?
hmm And you're not alone. Number one, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, hence I wrote a book because it's so common, right? So it's
Mhm.
like you're not alone. But I think it's one of those things where, just like anything, it starts with pausing and collecting some data on yourself. And so just notice before you're like, oh my gosh, I got to rewire everything and got to do this and this. And, your critic take over and you start thinking about what damage have I done? None. It's okay. You're working on something, you're reframing something. And so think about just when you're in interactions with people, even if it's your neighbor as you're getting the mail and they start to share, just notice if you can validate them first. If they tell you about the trip they just took and you immediately like, oh yeah, I went there 3 years ago. That's you're interacting, you're connecting, but before you do that, just say, wow, that sounds like that was super fun. What was your favorite part about it?
Yeah.
Leave the space for them. Just practice that before you then start, if they have a problem with something and you're immediately like, oh, we'll just do this, or I'll take care of it, or I'll do, or that happened to me. Just validate people first and let them know that you're making some effort to understand what they're saying verbally and non-verbally. That's a great place to start.
Amazing. Yeah, understanding. I've heard people tell me recently that I like to tell them when I've done. I like to say, yeah, that's amazing, and then say that I've done something better without knowing it, in like a very subversive way. So I needed to hear that as well. Um, but Leah, this has been absolutely incredible. I'd love for you to tell people where they can go to learn more about you, to get your book, to maybe speak with you one on one. Yeah,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy. My website is just leahmarone.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram and all the socials. And my book is called Serial Fixer: Break Free from the Habit of Solving Other People's Problems. And that's pretty much anywhere you like to buy books, especially online. But yeah, please do connect with me. And I'm also on Substack and doing a fixer file. So if you have anything you'd like to contribute to that, or have any thing that you'd like to share confidentially about how you're shifting your fixer patterns, I would love to talk to you about that and maybe do something on Substack.
amazing. All right, I'd like to end this before we pause recording just with what we're grateful for right now. I know I'm so grateful for you and this amazing conversation and the ideas that you have and how you're impacting the world. It's incredible. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. This has been great.
Amazing. All right. Well, everybody, this was the Grateful Podcast. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Leah.